Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the video interview series Empowering Stories to Inspire Change. In this series, I will be interviewing amazing men and women who have wonderful stories to share about a life-changing moment. And today we have the amazing Tara Bradford. Hi Tara.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. It's such a pleasure to have you. So please tell us, who are you? What should we know about you? Please introduce yourself.
I am a publicity strategist, a reputation designer, and international speaker, and I help individuals who want to become the go-to expert in their industry. Maybe they want to become best-selling authors or public speakers. I help them reach millions of people with their message through the power of publicity.
Yeah, oh, I can imagine. I coach so many people who go through the transition of, being, very shy and not being, standing out. And then all of a sudden they feel the confidence and they grow. And I guess you have the same with your audience.
The same with my audience and myself. I feel like I'm teaching people what I've learned for myself too.
Yeah. Isn't that, I think many coaches go through the same process. I mean, by teaching others, you teach and remind yourself all the time. What would you say your life looked like before your life-changing moment? Could you take us with you?
Yeah. Before my life-changing moment, I was the biggest people pleaser that you had ever met. I did everything for everybody else. I even went into the field of nursing as a career so I could take care of other people even more. I went into critical care, which means people are totally dependent on you. And I took care of a lot of people on life support. That's how much I wanted to take care of other people. But through that, I never learned how to take care of myself. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until this pivotal moment that I was forced to learn to take care of myself, because I realized that no matter how much I gave to other people, those people were not turning around and giving it back to me. And I wasn't being kind or giving to expect anything in return, but there came a point where I needed help and nobody was there for me. And I thought, well, what have I been doing with all of my time for the last 30 years? If when I am in trouble or I need help, and I never asked for help before, and then there's nobody. So it really made me evaluate the way that I was building relationships, the kinds of people I was surrounding myself with, and how I was managing my own energy.
I think that sounds so familiar for so many people, especially when you look at the jobs of nursing. And I mean, so many people are used to taking care of others without really taking care of themselves. Mm-hmm. So I think that's it's really amazing that you recognize that pattern in your life. So how did that make you feel? I mean, you said at a certain point you needed help, but how did that make you feel when you heard no one was there?
At that point, I was angry, but I wasn't angry at any one person. I was angry at myself because I recognized the actions I took had gotten me into that situation. But also, I felt like every time in my life when I've felt angry, it's propelled me forward into a more positive direction. I feel like it was always a sign of this is not working and I need to learn from this, and it just helped me build momentum. And so I feel like when you're faced with an important decision, those deep emotions come up, whether it's extreme joy or anger or disappointment. And it's really a guide for where you want to go, or like a clue to go down a path that you haven't been going down. And that was my clue that I was not being authentic. I was not standing up for myself. I was not taking care of myself. And I was really waiting for someone else to rescue me, and I was looking for validation. And that was a hard thing to call myself out on. And that's why I was angry. I was like, I am not that person who waits for someone else to rescue her. I
Mm.
can do this myself and I've done it before, and I don't know why I'm putting myself in this position where I feel like a victim.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, it's so powerful already that you have the ability to reflect on yourself like that, and to really take matters into your own hands and to see it as a source of power instead of, well, feeling a victim. So what did you do? What changed you? What did you do?
I moved. I gave up my whole life. I wouldn't recommend doing it this way, but I pretty much realized that I wasn't being authentic in my career, in my relationships. I didn't have any friends. I had moved to a new city where I didn't know anybody, and I didn't like anything about my life at that point. So I moved to a new city, started a temp job, didn't know anybody again, but this time I was in a different place and started my business 6 months later.
Oh, really? So you didn't move to continue your career as a nurse?
I took a temporary job as a nurse because I wasn't sure what I wanted. I knew I didn't want that, and so I was running away from it. People say that it was really brave of me to move to New York City by myself, but really I was running away because the thing I was leaving behind felt worse than the unknown that was waiting for me. And so I needed to figure out what I did want so I knew which way to go instead of running away from, it's like pulling your hand away from a fire.
Uh-huh.
You move away really fast in whatever direction is away from the fire. And then once things settle down, you're like, okay, let me see which
Yeah.
way I wanted to go.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So how did you feel? I mean, you moved to New York City, and then what? I mean, I've never been to New York. I'm from the Netherlands, but New York sounds to me as a huge city, and then what happens?
It is a huge city, and you should definitely come visit
I
sometime.
will.
But
I will. That's a promise.
okay, good. Well, I got to New York and I didn't know what to do, but I knew I would figure it out. And at first, I was scared and I was nervous, and I had this temporary job. And I think for the first 2 or 3 weeks, I didn't leave my apartment I was staying in. And I ordered takeout a lot.
Yeah.
And when the takeout restaurant I was ordering food from recognized my phone number and remembered my order because I had been ordering the same thing over and over, that was when I knew I could not have my success story of moving to New York be she sat in her apartment and ate Chinese food.
Yeah.
So I forced myself to get out. And
Yeah.
I'm a big introvert. I think I had two friends on Facebook who their profile said they lived in New York, but I hadn't connected with them in a really long time. So I reached out to them. So that was two people. And then I ended up making friends with bartenders. Those were the first people I made friends with because they're at work and they can't get away from you. They have to talk to you. And you can sit there as long as you want, as long as you keep ordering things.
Yeah.
So, and I'm still friends with them today.
What a
And
great
then,
strategy.
yeah, I had never gone to dinner by myself before. I had never sat at a bar by myself before, ever. And so that was really scary. And I would sit at the edge of the bar and kind of do one of these and like not want anyone to sit next to me or talk to me because I wouldn't know what to say.
Yeah.
And that was how it started. And I knew I needed to make friends. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew there were 8 million other people in New York City. So I was bound to make friends somehow. And this was how I started. And it felt really brave. That was when I was like, okay, I'm really brave and I'm going to do this.
Oh, yeah.
And, and,
Definitely.
and then I met amazing people.
Oh, that's great. That's okay. But what made you go there in the first place? I mean, did the need to make friends, was it that strong? Or, I mean, it really takes a lot of courage to take that first step and to go into a bar all by yourself and just sit there. So what made you do that?
I think it was the need to make friends and I was really reevaluating my friendships from the past and those situations where I was helping everyone else around me and really looking for people who were doing things differently so that I was looking to learn because I knew what I was doing in the past wasn't working and I knew I needed to do something different. I didn't know what that was. So I just started doing things I had never done before. I actually made a bucket list of all the things I had never done before that had been sitting in the back of my mind. But I was thinking, oh, I'll do that one day, maybe when I retire or later in life or tomorrow. I wrote down all of those things. I had 6 pages of things.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. I love that. I love that. Well, later on, I'll ask you what's still on your list. Let's continue the story. So you went into this bar and you started to make friends with the bartenders. And then what happened?
I started going to networking events. That was the next thing. And I knew I didn't want to be a nurse anymore. I felt like I had done that. I was really good at it. I touched a lot of people's lives. I helped a lot of families through really difficult times. I have a stack of thank you cards in my closet from everyone that I've worked with who sent me a card. And I felt like I want to meet these people when they're thriving and help them feel happy then, because I listened to a lot of regrets. And I was thinking, how can I go back? And you mentioned earlier that we repeat patterns. I think we repeat patterns until we learn the lesson.
Yeah.
And for me, in my life, when I've hit rock bottom a couple of times, I've always looked back and felt like I was repeating a pattern and I needed to feel that painful thing in order to learn the lesson that the subtle hints were not teaching me.
Yeah.
And now I pay attention, but back then I didn't. And so I thought, how can I meet these people when they're thriving and help them shine a light on those little hints and show them? And that's how I met my first coach. Actually, I didn't know coaching was an industry. I know it sounds silly when I tell people this story.
I know. I've got more or less the same experience. So many people. I didn't know about coaching and training. I didn't know until I met the first coach and trainer.
Yes, and I thought, oh my gosh, I've met this amazing person that nobody else knows about coaching. This is like a super secret, amazing thing that I've discovered. I felt like I found the pot of gold at the end of a rainbow.
Yeah.
And it was a coach sitting next to me at the bar. And I didn't want to talk to him either, but he sat down and he was beaming. He was like a bright light. He was the happiest person I had ever seen in my life. And he started talking to me. He never introduced himself, actually. I don't know his name. But he sat down and he had just delivered a keynote speech. And he was so happy and he was flying out the next day. And he started talking to me and just asking me about my day. And I was still in this mode, like, don't talk to me. I'm invisible, making myself small in the corner. And yeah, the introvert.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't talk to people for 3 days after this encounter. But I spoke to him and I was polite and he asked me a lot of questions. And we ended up getting to a point in the conversation where he said, can I give you some advice? And I said, sure. And I was having a really bad day, so I was open to any advice that would pull me out of that. I just had a bad day at work. And so his advice was, sorry for the background noise, it's noisy in New York.
No, it's fine.
But his advice was, sometimes the thing that comes naturally to you does not come naturally to everyone else. And you need to pay attention to what is easy for you and notice the difference between what's easy and what is taking the easy way out, because they are not the same thing. And he said, yeah.
That's a
He's
good one.
He said, I was just giving a keynote speech and I didn't have a PowerPoint presentation. I didn't have notes. I didn't have anything really prepared. I was just talking about something that I'm passionate about. And he never told me what that was. And I was so like mesmerized by the advice that I didn't even think to ask him. And he said, I looked out into the audience and there were people recording, there were people taking notes.
Mm.
I think there were some people taking so many notes their hand never stopped moving. And he said, that's how you know that you found your thing.
Wow.
And I walked away from that conversation and I decided I was not going to go forward with my 5-year plan that I had all mapped out that I was in complete control of. I threw it all away and I decided to stay in New York and start a business and do the thing that I was really good at that people came to me all the time for advice around.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did.
Do you think that guy would still remember talking to you at that bar? Do you think he will remember this moment?
I don't know. I'm not sure. He did tell, my bartender friend afterwards texted me and she said, that guy was still talking about you after you left. And he was saying like, what an interesting person. And she said, that was a crazy interaction. And I hope you're not changing all of your plans right now because you don't even know this person. And he just told you that you're not going to do what you've been saying you're going to do for the last 6 months.
Mm.
And I texted her back and I was like, I think he's right. And she was like, what? What are you talking about? And so maybe he would remember me as the girl in New York who was going to go to grad school. And he told me, you're not going to go. You don't want to do that. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, you're right. I don't want to go.
So what happened after that? So you made this decision after meeting this amazing guy. And then what happened?
I kept networking. I met another mentor who is still my mentor today through it was a college group. So people who had gone to the same university who were connecting in different locations. Mm-hmm. And there was a group in New York City. And so I met him and he started asking me questions about myself again. There's something about questions. There's people who speak more than they listen, and there's people who listen more than they speak. And the people who listen and ask questions are the people who I have stuck around more moving forward from that moment when I needed help to now. Yeah. I think I have a lot more people in my life today who ask questions rather than giving advice or talking. And so that's interesting. I just realized that. But he asked me questions about myself, and I told him I'm a nurse. I also had a YouTube channel at the time, but it was just a hobby, just a little passion side project. I'm not trying to make money or anything. Mm-hmm. And that's what I said to him. And he said, well, you can make money doing that. And I thought, well, maybe I could. Maybe it wouldn't be selfish or greedy or bad for me to use that platform to make money if it's helping other people. And so I found out later that he was running a multi-million-dollar company in multiple countries, had like 5 different offices. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, if I had known this about him when I first met him, I never would have talked to him. Like I was so intimidated. Yeah. And so when I found that out, he started inviting me to networking events with other executives. And that was how I got into coaching business owners, was the interactions with those people and recognizing patterns in how they do things and seeing the value that I could bring to the table and help them kind of take things to the next level for themselves.
So how did you build the confidence to I mean, when you start out, it's like, okay, I'm going to do this because I feel something. But then what? I mean, your mind takes over instantly. And then what? How did you deal with that?
I said no a lot. I didn't just get invited one time and then say, yes, I'll come with you. I think I said no for 6 months. I said,
Okay.
no, I don't have anything in common with those people. No, no,
Okay.
that's not for me. I'm not a business owner. I'm just a nurse. I just have this little YouTube channel. It's not a big deal. I'm not the same as you.
Mm.
And it wasn't until he said something, I don't remember what he said before this, but these words stood out to me. He said, people like us. And that was the first time he had compared me to him. And here I was thinking, we are so different. We have nothing in common except that
There
we
is
went to
no
the
us.
same, right? We went to the same university, studied completely different things,
Mhm.
and we're not the same.
Okay.
But he said people like us. And that flipped something in my mind where I thought, for the first time, how are we the same instead of how are we different? And
Mm.
I asked him, I said, what do you mean people like us? And he said, visionary entrepreneurs. Like it was no big deal. And I was
He
like,
knew.
I thought this is the biggest deal ever. This is
Yeah.
a huge moment for me.
Yeah.
But I kept it to myself. I kept it inside and like had goosebumps everywhere and was thinking, oh my gosh, I've never been called that before in my whole life. And that was when I realized that there is a disconnect between the way other people see us
Hmm.
and the way that we see ourselves.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think that's such a powerful thing you're addressing now, that it's really, and I think especially women really undervalue who they are, the power that they have, and everything they have to bring to this world. So, yeah, I think that's such an important issue. So, how did that work for you? I mean, you hear this, and then you're like, what? People like us? A visionary entrepreneur? What? Me? And then what?
Well, then I was excited. I was like giggly and it was fun. I mean, not in front of him, but later when I was in my apartment by myself doing my little like happy dance, I thought, well, what does this mean for me? And what does this mean that I'm going to do next? And I got certified in high performance coaching next so that I could
Mm.
start working with people and feel confident in my abilities because I had to practice with for a certain number of hours with a certain number of people
Yeah.
before I could go out and start my business. So that's what I did next. But this idea of other people seeing you and you seeing yourself the same way and kind of bridging that gap and making those things the same
Yeah.
was always fascinating to me. And I think that's what led me to what I'm doing now.
Mm. Yeah. So when did this all happen? How long ago is that?
I moved to New York 2.5 years ago.
Okay. Wow. Wow. So
Yeah.
it's really
Not,
a big shift in a very short period of time.
yes.
Wow. Wow. So fast forward to today. What does your life look like now?
So now I help people gain publicity for themselves and their businesses as a personal brand. So you're the face of your business
Hmm.
and you want to do more public speaking, you want to write a book, and you want to get that visibility. But it's not because you want to be the center of attention. The people that I work with would prefer not to have social media. They would prefer not to be the face of their company, but they have an important message that they want to share with the world,
Hmm.
and their message is bigger than them. And they know that they need help to deliver that message because they don't see themselves the way that other people see them. And I
Hmm.
help hold up the mirror so they can see themselves that way, so they can show up in the world the way the world needs them to show up.
Wow, yeah, and I think it's so important to to be that mirror for people, and because again, so many people, especially women, really hold back because they think, well, it's not a big deal what I can do, and it's not that special, and they need people like you and me to be that mirror and to make sure they know and they step into that power of being the best version of themselves.
Right.
That's a great job you're doing. That's lovely. So what does that mean? I mean, are you on a stage on a regular basis? What does that look like?
I'm actually speaking at a women's event in London next month. I'm not sure when this episode's going to air, but November.
Wow,
Yeah.
exciting. That's exciting. Wow.
I know. I love speaking. I speak a lot on the topic of diversity and inclusion, and how, the same way I did with my mentor, how I can focus on things that are similar versus things that are different, how we as a community can focus on our similarities as humans rather than our differences, and pointing our fingers at each other and blaming other people and things like that, and shift that focus so that we can actually get more of what we want, which I think is connection.
Yeah, I think it's such a true thing. I mean, if you look at, I mean, you told me you're an introvert, right? How does that evolve from being an introvert to standing on a stage and speaking to a lot of people in a room?
A lot of work on myself, a lot of coaches, a lot of investing in my own personal development and growth. And really, all of my programs, I have a group program, I work with people one-on-one, and I do corporate workshops and public speaking, and I'm currently working on a book. All of these things are things that I never dreamed of doing, and honestly never even wanted to do. I used to tell myself, I'm not a public speaker, I don't like that, and I would turn bright red. So I hired a public speaking, I was going to say publicity coach. I hired a public speaking coach to work with me, where I would actually get up on the stage and have to speak in front of people to practice and get over that fear. And I think we get over it by doing it. Oh, yeah. And I realized afterwards, when people come up and talk to you, they don't remember what you were wearing, what you looked like, if you had something in your teeth. They remember what you said.
Yeah.
And they'll come to you and they'll say, that thing that you said about this thing, that really spoke to me. And then they come and share their stories with you. Yeah. And it really gives everyone permission to reflect on their own story and to give voice to their past experiences. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about public speaking for me.
Yeah. Oh, I can totally relate to that. I love being on a stage and make that connection and really invite people to share their own story. I mean, people have amazing stories and they don't even know it. And they just think, yeah, well, everyone has a story and it's no big deal. And I really love getting these stories out. So I can totally relate to that. I mean, it must be lovely. But I think it's an amazing lesson that you're sharing here, that once you feel that you have a bigger thing to do in this world, you hire people to help you get there. Yeah. That's a very important lesson that you're sharing here. And as what you said about that people will always remember what you said. I mean, you remember the guy in the bar. Yeah, what he said. I mean, I didn't even meet the guy, and even I remember now. That's a powerful thing that you can share. And it doesn't matter what you look like. If you're overweight or too tiny or too small or whatever, it's really about the message that you have to spread. So. I think it's amazing. Oh my God, you're going to London. That's amazing. Well, Amsterdam and London are not too far apart. So I'll try to be there. If that's an option, of course.
Yes, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So if you look back on everything that changed for you, what kind of lessons would you like to share with the viewers to help them overcome their adversity or their being shy or an introvert? What would you recommend?
I think the first thing is, don't give up and have faith that it's going to happen. I think for me, every time I've felt like giving up, if I just gave 2% more or a little bit more, or there was something just around the corner waiting for me every single time. And I kept going, and that thing was around the corner waiting for me. I didn't know it was there. I didn't know that a huge opportunity was coming. I was exhausted and overwhelmed and thinking this isn't going to work and I'm not doing it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But know that when you get to that point, it means that you need to just keep going a little bit further. Maybe it's that point where you hire a coach to help you get over the thing that's in your way.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's just you call yourself out on the thing that you're not doing. Like me and the Chinese food, I had to call myself out on not making friends.
Yeah.
And you just go and do it. And that's going to lead you to that opportunity. The second piece of advice is to fail fast. And I think I am the queen of this. My mentor tells me, I don't know anyone who can fail as fast as you and then just pivot and walk away like nothing happened. And so what I mean by this is look for the lesson in every failure.
Okay.
And see what it's teaching you. Yeah. And the same way that anger showed me that I was not living my most authentic life and I needed to pull my hand away from the fire or run away in the opposite direction. That's what I mean by failing fast and then learning. Yeah. So I was like, I'm running away from what I don't want, but I don't know what I do want. So let me go find that. And that was where the 6-page bucket list came from.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that's so important. So important. I always say, your mistakes are your assets. And it's the source of everything. So I think that's great that you share this as a lesson and as a piece of advice to our viewers. Amazing.
Yeah. And then one more. I have one more piece of advice and then I'll close. But one of my other mentors tells me that I shouldn't do something unless I'm willing to run through a brick wall for it. And so I think do something that you love, that you're passionate about, that makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning, because there are going to be days where you think, what have I gotten myself into? But if you're doing it because you love it and you're really grounded in your purpose and your truth, then nothing is going to stand in your way of making that happen. And I say this because I hear from so many women, they're like, my day will come, or one day the opportunity will appear, or I'm waiting for a miracle. But I think it goes the other way. You need to expect the miracle to happen and then run through walls to make it happen. Don't walk. Don't wait for it to come to you. Run.
Yeah.
That's my last bit of advice.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. I really love that, because that is, it keeps the fire burning, doesn't it? I mean, you need it, because there will be days that you think, oh my God, what did I do? Then you need the fire and you need the why, and then you can just keep going. So that's lovely. I really love these pieces of advice that you're sharing here. That's amazing. So coming back to the 6-page bucket list, how far are you on that list?
I did everything in the first 6 months of living in New York.
Really? Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing.
I did have to keep adding things to the bottom. So the next thing on my bucket list that I'm working on is a TEDx talk about success and failure. So stay tuned for that.
Oh,
and it hasn't happened yet, but I know it will. I'm looking at it happening in 2019.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, well, we will be watching you and following you and seeing what will be happening, because, you will be on that TEDx stage, no doubt about that. That's great. That's great. So I really would like to thank you for your story and your wonderful pieces of advice. And I'm very sure many of our viewers love it. And, they will be able to contact you on the social media links that we will be sharing. So stay tuned for people reaching out to you, because I'm sure there will be many. So
I would love that. Thank you. And I just want to offer a free 5-day publicity challenge to everybody who's listening. I will give you the link, but it's on my website under free resources.
That's great.
TaraRaeBradford.com. So thank you so much for having me. I've loved this interview.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we'll be in touch.